Hey guys, it's Empress. Guess what? I'm back with another one. Let's get to it.
It's more than statements, it's a way of life. So ambitious. Let me suggest some talking.
Alright guys, that's right. I am back with a Patron's Pick by Haven SMM. And this one is a interview actually by our girl Owen J from 1982. Check it out.
Entertainment and show business, you can talk a lot about behind your back. Most of it kind.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I thought you'd like that. Yeah. But John Travolta, among others, and people you've worked with, Randall Kleiser, Alan Carr, people who may or may not be part of your professional or personal life right now. And I was thinking specifically of Anne Murray's generosity towards you and the kind of full circle part of it, because you toured with Bruce Murray, who worked with you.
Yes.
And there was a wonderful story about Bruce coming home and talking about warming up and harmonizing through the walls of dressing rooms.
Yes.
Now, was this going on for the entire tour, Olivia, where you and Bruce Murray warmed up through makeup and dressing room walls?
I think we probably, most nights I do that for a while and he used to join in and everyone joins in. On the current tour now, we have a physical warm-up. We all get together in a room and stretch together and I lead the group.
There's such a sense of generosity about you, though, within the industry. When someone like Anne Murray talks about admiring your musicianship.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No, it's very nice. Thank you.
What do you think of Anne Murray?
Oh, she's got a fine voice. Beautiful voice. I like her very much.
Well, you see. When I think of the tour and the fact that there are, by the time you're finished and when it's completed, you will have been in 50 cities, that you can have evenings like a recent one where 21,000 people, and the demographics on those 21,000 people are so extraordinary that when you can say to an audience, I'll paraphrase, but now I'm going to sing some songs that will date you.
Yes, forget about me.
Yes. Oh, of course, I know you
I
won't.
haven't aged at all,
No.
but you.
You only meant the audience.
Right.
Of course, many of them showed up with children they didn't have 7 years ago, Olivia.
I know. That's what's amazing.
Does it amuse or make you pause and contemplate?
That's why I always say that's what good music do. Like for an artist to, I feel like achieve like this global superstardom or have like this gigantic hit, TikTok proves it. The kids got to be in on it. If the kid's not in on it, I don't know if it's going to be that huge. You know what I mean? But apparently the kids of the age was in on physical. Let's go.
That you are indeed playing to people who have children who may have been single the first time they saw you?
Yeah, it does. Especially I look in the front row sometimes and I see 5-year-old children with their parents and teenage boys. It's amazing to me because I think there are people who have known me since the very early days, who followed my career since then, and then there are new people from the physical album and then the in-between from Grease and Sanity, so it's terrific for me.
It is extraordinary, though, to sit across from you and realize that, give or take a half a year or a matter of months, that we're now talking about a career that is almost a 20-year investment of your life, if we go back to the first success in Australia. And I sit across from a woman who has Australian citizenship, a British passport, lives in Malibu. Where's your heart?
In San Francisco. No. No, I think in Australia, really. Because even though I live in America and I love it, and I have a wonderful place there, Australia is home to me. Whenever I go back there, I kind of find it very difficult to leave. They speak the same language, you know. And my parents are there, and my brother. And I hope eventually to go back there. You know, every time I go back there, I say, I've got to move back here, but, you know, when I have a house and I have animals, and I find it very hard to actually leave California, I think.
You find you can almost be a Gillaroo in Malibu?
I would love to be. You know, I don't know if you knew this, but that was an ambition of mine once, when I was a young girl. For people who don't know, a jackaroo is a kind of, what would you call it in America?
Cowboy.
A cowboy. And a Gillaroo was the female equivalent, and I always thought that that would be the perfect life. I could ride horses all day and work on a ranch, you know, but it wasn't really heard of then. It was either that or a mounted policewoman, because that way I'd have a job and ride horses.
And then if that didn't work, there was always the work as a veterinarian or a veterinarian assistant.
So that was much harder work. I'd
Not
have to
as
go
hard
to
as
university.
mucking those stables, Olivia.
Oh, that's true, yes.
course, you are the woman who said, when your mother expressed concern, even with success, about the stability of the world of show business, and you said you would muck stables, but this time you would hope they'd be your stables.
Yes. Now I can say they are mine, which is nice. I do occasionally do it just to keep me down to earth, you know.
If your heart is in Australia, is it somewhere on those 80 acres of your sugarcane avocado plantation?
Yes. I bought this farm because I've always wanted to have a farm and be self-sufficient, and I bought some land in an area where the weather is very tropical, so you can grow things all the year round. It's very green and lush and beautiful and away from all major cities. So I always know in the back of my mind that I have a retreat to go to. And I get away.
You were in Australia not so long ago, and you were there at the same time that your friend and fellow musician Elton John happened to be there. It's obviously difficult for you to go anywhere in the world and be photographed beside a man without the world press announcing the two of you are running off together.
Yes.
Where did you first meet Elton John? How long have you known him?
Gosh, I've known Elton a really long time. I think I met him first in England a long, long time ago when I was not, he was a big star and I was, doing quite well, but not nearly as well as him. And he was always very, very nice to me and invited me to his home and used to mess around on the piano and sing and stuff. I think he's such a wonderful singer and musician. It's wonderful. I don't see him very often. In fact, in Australia, I missed him. We spoke on the phone, but I missed him in every city because I was in a different place all the time.
Olivia Newton-John is with us. We've been talking about your life and your career and the reality of touring the world, really. And I think of you having that extraordinary experience in Sun City in Botswana.
Bophuthatswana.
How do you pronounce it?
Bophuthatswana, I think, is the correct pronunciation.
And
not to be confused with Botswana, because that's a different place.
That's true. And 60,000 people, by the time you were finished performing those concerts, they had had Frank Sinatra, they had Anne Margaret, they had had everybody. And you set a new world record for performing there. And I just wonder, because people write about you the way they write about you, and they write about your talent, at this point, and I mentioned earlier that we can talk about a 20-year career investment, what are the priorities for you? Expressing yourself or pleasing your audience? What comes first now?
I think a little bit of both. Because if I became completely self-indulgent, I don't think anyone would probably listen to me. Because I just do big ballads and things, that would bore everyone to tears. So I think, especially at this stage in my career, when it's harder to keep it up. I mean, the longer that you're in the public eye and have been making records, it's harder to keep churning out something new and different, hopefully, because I don't want to become stale and I don't want to be making the same records now as I was making 10 years ago. So I want to create something different and hopefully that people will like, but not that I don't like. I wouldn't record something I didn't like either. And that's why I'm enjoying my new, since physical, it's kind of a new career in a way because it's much more up, young kind of music than I was known for before.
People make...
I stand by it. Some of y'all be like, oh, Olivia was totally against Soul Kiss. I don't think so. I think a part of her was feeling Soul Kiss. And again, I still stand by it. I just feel like the 80s let Olivia down with Soul Kiss. But hey, whatever. Let's go.
Make announcements all the time, and you're hardly immune. I mean, trade papers, what are known in the motion picture business or the entertainment world as the trade papers, have announcements on a weekly or certainly regular basis about you, and one week we can read that your friend Nancy Gould, who happens to be a writer, is working on a screenplay for you and John Travolta. And then Randall Kaiser, your friend and the director of Grease, arrives and announces that hopefully he will reunite you with John Travolta and you will all go off to Australia to make a romantic comedy called About a Week. In the middle of this, I'm wondering what happened to the film version of D.H. Lawrence's Kangaroo with you playing a housewife in Australia opposite Brian Brown. Now, with all of these announcements, Olivia, what's next? Which one of these things is closest to becoming a reality?
Okay, well, the Brian Brown movie seemed to be a reality, but it fell through. So I've learnt since then that I shouldn't really talk about a film until it's actually, set to go. But maybe a week before, because you never know what's going to happen. I really thought that was going to happen, and it never came off. Nancy, who is a friend of mine, was writing the script, but that was a long time ago, and it never really got anywhere. And the film with John it is true. We are going to do a movie together. That is the working title. And Randall hopefully will direct it, but I'm not really sure. That's pending, but next year we hope to do that. So I'm hoping that'll be my next project. Comedy.
Check out my review of Two of a Kind as well. I reviewed that maybe like a year or two ago, but I'm gonna put it on the end cap. Make sure y'all check that out.
John, because we wanted to work together since Grease, but it seems that we could never get a project together, or he did a movie and the female part wasn't right for me, or I'd do something and it wasn't right for him, but we have wanted to work together since.
What was the project, Olivia? I think it was before Xanadu, where Alan Carr had the idea of you playing the companion of one of the village people in a romantic comedy, I would assume with some mystery to it?
That was Can't Stop the Music.
Oh, that was Can't Stop the Music. So you lost that one to Valerie Perrine, and you've never forgiven her.
I actually had hepatitis. I had hepatitis. And I will tell you the truth, I think we discussed doing the movie. I was never really set to do it. It all kind of got out of hand, as these things tend to do. Then I got sick, and I read the script, and I wasn't terribly in love with the script, so I passed on it. That is actually what happened.
I believe you. And on that, we will take a commercial break. Honest with us. When you talk about the ballads that you might sing if you were left all by yourself, and there was no manager, no record agents, and no promoters saying, Olivia, it won't sell.
Yes.
You've proven it. Now do this. And you can give them a little bit of everything. But then I think if you're going into a recording studio, and recording Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, and then standing in front of 4,000 people at the Metropolitan Opera of New York City, on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera, and having critics seem almost grudgingly to say about you, yes, she's good, yes, she's sustaining it, okay, she's not completely sweet, and milk and white bread. And then you come out and you say, I waited a long time for Grease. I waited a long time after Grease to do Xanadu. The album will always stand on its own, even if the movie failed. What I'd really like to do is play EVITA in the film version of EVITA. Since we know that Liza Minnelli got on an airplane and flew to London and did a screen test for Ken Russell, did Ken Russell phone you? Did you phone Ken Russell?
No, there was never any contact. And I let it known that I was interested, but I guess they don't feel that I could do it. So someone suggested that I did the same thing and just went for it, but I don't think maybe I wasn't hungry enough or eager enough or something, but I didn't have the confidence enough to do that. But it's a wonderful role. But I believe Elaine Page is doing it, and I think it's probably correct that she is doing it because she created the role, and she's wonderful at it.
Tell me.
So it's an interesting time for me because, for those of you guys who don't know, I am literally, for the past 3 years, I started my channel because of Olivia Newton-John, but ended up doing a Madonna journey. And right now I'm at the point where she is literally about to be EVITA. And so I was telling the viewers of those videos that I had heard ONJ's Don't Cry for Me, Argentina. Yeah, and I think she did a great job. I think she was really robbed of an opportunity here. But I feel my girls like, hey, if they don't want me, I'm not going to force it.
Hollywood thought that about everything they adapted to film.
Yeah, I know, it's true. I think it's terrific, actually, that the originator gets a chance to do the movie.
As long as we're talking about film, one of the other things that was once a part of your professional announcement world was that you were going to go to the French Riviera, and it was going to be Singing in the Rain on the French Riviera with Olivia Newton-John surrounded by Mikhail Baryshnikov, Marcello Mastroianni, Keith Carradine. Alan Carr was going to do this as a gift to you because Singing in the Rain was your favorite musical. What happened?
That part I hadn't heard, but the rest of it was discussed. It never got past the treatment stage. Alan presented me with the idea, and then for some reason, I don't know what happened. Something happened in his career and mine, and it never got past the treatment after that. I think actually what it was very sad, was that Bronte Woodard, who was a friend of Alan's, who did the screen adaptation of Grease, died, and I think he was writing the screenplay, so I think after that Alan kind of lost heart. And I don't
Was the
blame him.
original treatment, Olivia, called Meet Me at the Melba?
No, this is another one.
That was another one.
Bronte wrote the book, Meet Me at the Melba, and that is something that we are talking about the possibility of now. That's a really good story.
When I ask you about Evita as a film, and you can come back and say, perhaps, you weren't hungry enough. When people in the entertainment industry point out with pride that Greece, at this point, is approaching almost $200 million, it certainly passed 190.
Listen, my girl, mine was churning, right? Like, you can just see it, right? Like, Olivia, I feel like people underestimated her off that whole quote-unquote sweetness factor. But in this interview, I see a very confident woman, a very strong woman, a woman that knows what she wants, a woman that is cheeky, right? Like, if you're going to say something to her, best believe she's going to have a comeback. You know what I mean? Like, because Olivia was very quick with it. All right, let's...
And although you have smilingly denied it, there are reports that perhaps you made $10 million, perhaps you didn't. It could be less, it could be more, but you're not making a commitment, which is a wise thing to do when money reaches those sums. But I think of it in terms of, if one has that and has known what it is to share a flat in Shepherd's Bush with a friend who's a fellow artist and find themselves going home from a men's club somewhere in England being attacked by punks who think they should be singing rock and roll, when you watch your girlfriend thrown down on the street because people don't agree with your artistic decisions, and then you're hungry. You're really hungry. What propels you when Evita's there and you can say, maybe I just wasn't hungry enough?
I love working, and it's a challenge to me. I mean, this tour, the tour that I'm on at the moment, I didn't need to do it. I didn't have to do it either, because my records have been doing very well and such, but it really was a personal challenge. And maybe it's my father calls it the Christian working ethic, where you feel you have to work to feel, so you don't feel guilty about what you have. It's something to do with that as well, I suppose. And I enjoy working and putting myself through this, because it's very, it's tiring and it's hard work, and you're opening yourself wide up to criticism and such. I don't know, I think it's just a thing inside me that I'm never really content with what I've done. I'm always striving to be a little bit better and to grow. And but with Evita, it's interesting. There were times when I thought maybe I would go after it, but then I kind of gave up. I believe, actually, I have a philosophy that what is meant to be will be. If that part was meant for me, then it would have come to me, or they would have been interested in me for it. But there must be a reason why I'm not doing it, so I just leave it alone. And I sing the song, and it's one of my favourite songs of all time, actually. So that kind of compensates.
That's the most alarmingly romantic explanation I've ever heard about why a star personality didn't do something. I've enjoyed meeting you.
Oh, you too. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. City Lights on Location with Olivia Newton-John. Olivia Newton-John, having appeared with John Travolta in the box office smash Grease, which has earned more than $190 million. Olivia Newton-John discusses her plans for a feature film project with Travolta, as well as the changing direction of her musical career. City Lights on Location will return with Olivia Newton-John right after this. Olivia Newton-John is with us. Why is sweet a terrible word, Olivia?
I don't know, when you say that about somebody, it kind of sounds kind of innocuous, doesn't it?
You know what John Travolta said about you once that I thought was amusing? people, because there's the image and because one never wants to be pigeonholed or categorized, because it denies growth, personal, professional. And for years, people in Hollywood, or people specifically, probably the Burbank studios, thought that Olivia Newton-John would do for the movies through the 80s what Doris Day did through the 50s. And there really was a feeling that you could be Doris Day Part 2. And John Travolta would talk about you on occasion and said at one point that he really got a lot of fun out of being around you and using bad language.
Yes.
Because it amused him to watch your reaction. He also said that Olivia does have a hot streak in her. Is there this feeling now that you almost feel forced to save it for your friends and the intimates that, oh, look.
I guess. I mean, I don't want to shock anybody that I don't know too well. John used to get incredible pleasure out of, just before a take, saying something. The soundman must have been having coronaries, I tell you, because he would say anything just to shock me. And I'm not easily shockable. I was probably more shockable than I am now, but I wasn't easily shockable, so he got pretty outrageous. It was really funny.
I think about the generosity, too, you know, when you were negotiating, discussing, appearing in Greece. And you notice I have not brought up the British film you did with Tomorrow.
No. Oh, it's very good of you not to bring it up.
Glad.
Very, yes. So Walter
Come on,
Rowley-ish.
wasn't that terrible?
Well, have you seen it?
Harry Saltzman liked it. Of course, he produced it.
I don't think he even liked it. Actually.
That was on his way to the Bond films.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, the reason I'm bringing up John Travolta again and Greece is that you went to Alan Carr and you went to Randall Kleiser and you expressed concern, should I go to a drama coach? Should I study? Is there a technique for film that I don't have? And everyone said, don't do anything to yourself, just show up. But John Travolta had a kind of professional generosity. For example, there is terminology in film, and one of those terms being your master shot, where something is photographed over someone else's shoulder. And he was always there for you. He was always there to give you your line. And didn't he, on one particular occasion, when you had a very difficult scene, cause himself to make an error on purpose for your benefit?
It was a close-up of mine, and I wasn't doing it I didn't do it as well as he thought I could do it. So he fluffed his line to me and went, oh, sorry. And he came over to me and said, I know you can do it better than that. And I thought that was really generous, because especially a lot of actors are known for not wanting the other person to do as well. But he was very supportive of me, and he's a really terrific fellow.
When I think of you being on vacation, you were still living in England, I think, at the time, and you were in Miami or somewhere in Florida. And through circumstances, you met Jeff Wald and Helen Reddy. And Jeff Wald was one of the people already in America who encouraged you.
Yes.
And said, you must move.
Yeah.
They already know who you are. The momentum is building. Make the transition and move. When you have friends like Jeff Wald and Helen Reddy, and they have the problems they have, professionally and personally, who at the end of it emerges as your friend? Or are you now friends with both of those people?
I haven't seen them terribly much lately, and I'm sorry to hear about their personal problems, because they've had a bad share, but I will always thank them for those early years, because when I first started in Hollywood and I hardly knew anybody, they were very generous to me. They always invited me over to meet people and took me with them when they went out, and Helen did encourage me to move here, which from a fellow artist is also very generous. But because of our schedules and everything, I haven't seen them terribly much lately.
Do you remember the very first time in your life you met Peter Allen?
The very first time? Goodness. Now, maybe you can tell me when I did. I've known him a long time.
Were you in Australia? Did you meet in Australia?
No, I don't think we met in Australia. I think we met in America. And after I recorded I Honestly Love You, and I didn't meet him for years after. So I think it might have been at a discotheque, the Hippopotamus Club in New York or something. This was the first time I ever met him. And we worked together on the Royal Gala in Australia. He's a character. He really is funny. He's really talented too. He does a wonderful send-up for me in his show. I loved it.
City Lights on Location will return with Olivia Newton-John right after this. I think of you being in England, having made the transition, and of course it's important to point out that while you were born in England, you were 5 when you arrived in Australia, and you had those formative years. won the talent contest, got on the boat and went back to England, then found yourself in America. But something you've always had, it must be, not being presumptuous or psychiatric about it, but there must be a very special sense of security for you to know that before you ever set foot on American soil, your voice and your music had been accepted. You had not been on live television in America. There were no movies. There were no concert appearances. And this strength that the people who know you talk about, you're strong. You can get things done. And you can still be a lady. You've never sacrificed your femininity. But even in all of this, am I wrong in thinking there was a secret security in thinking they can write whatever they like about me, about my face, my figure, my hair, and call me pretty, pretty? But it was my voice they discovered first.
I think I'm very lucky in that I have a stability. I don't know how secure I am, because I think most performers are a little insecure. That's why maybe we end up doing what we do, because we want to be liked, you know. But it was a nice feeling, because the records were big first, and I wasn't known. So they used to call me in England when I first began. She should have been an air hostess, or she should have stuck to modelling, or so that really incensed me, and I think I wanted to prove even more that I did have a voice, and it wasn't just a face. So when America began with my records, I kind of went, huh? See?
And only last week you did it again. One of my favorite stories about you happens to involve someone we know named Alan Thicke. And Alan Thicke was working...
I know what this is, Colin.
What's the story, Olivia?
Go on, you tell me.
Did you send a case of champagne at the end of it with a note?
Yes.
Saying, sorry, it's too good to turn up. What did you do to poor Alan Thicke?
Well, he kind of made it a little more... well, he made it funnier than it really was, but we were both looking for beach houses. And I'd been looking, and I think I set him up with the same estate agent that I had. So we both looked at the same place. And I said, you should look at this beach house down at wherever it was. And so I've been looking at it, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get it. So he went to see it and liked it very much. And then found out that I'd bought it. And called me up and said, I thought that you were going to buy this house. And it was kind of a strange thing, because I rang the estate agent and I said, you didn't tell me Alan wanted to buy this house. And it was a very embarrassing situation, but it was just one of those things. He makes it a little more dramatic. So I sent him some champagne to kind of calm him down a little bit. So she said, well, he hadn't actually said he wanted it for sure, and we know how his agents are. I have to pay.
You mentioned your father, and you reminded me in mentioning your father and the Christian work ethic. About that time you appeared on a Dinah Shore show, and Dinah Shore surprised you by announcing she had a special mystery guest, that your father walked out. You, at that point, had to get up and walk across the set and sing, If You Love Me, Let Me Know, with your father. It seemed at the moment like one of the most diabolical setups anybody ever had. What do you think now when you think of that moment? And Ed Asner, looking at your father on the same show and saying, boy, was he mad. He was mad.
Was he?
Well, Ed Asner said your father. You were there, was he?
Oh, I think my father was very, he's quite shy. I think he's rather embarrassed. The whole situation of being brought on national television as a surprise. And then I think Dinah Shore asked him, because I've often been asked, could I have been an opera singer? Or would I have been, or whatever, because my mother wanted me to be one. That was in the beginning when she took me to a singing lesson, which turned out to be a singing lesson because I refused to go back. Wanted me to learn how to sing and to become an opera singer. And I've always said that's what my mother wanted. So Dinah Shore said to my father, your daughter could have been an opera singer? He said, definitely not. She hasn't got the stamina or something like that. Completely put me down. Like, whoa. He didn't mean it that way. He was quite correct, because you do need to have a lot of strength, and, you know, it's a very hard job to be an operatic singer.
Almost as much as you need for a 50-city tour.
Yeah, just about. But, no, I think he was just a little bit embarrassed by the whole thing.
I was thinking of Maria Callas's line, the legendary Maria Callas, about stamina and being an opera singer. And the other thing you needed was good feet.
Oh, yeah.
Good
You
feet.
couldn't have flat feet, I'm sure. Stand on them too long. My father could have been an opera singer, at least a leader singer. He always corrects me. It was leader who wanted to sing, not operas. But he has a wonderful voice, and as a young man, he was offered to study in Italy with one of the top vocal coaches, but he decided to stay in academic career.
Have those girlhood impressions of classical music that you once found sad and depressing change? As you get older, do you find that perhaps Mahler, Bruckner, or Lieder can indeed mean more to you than they once did?
Much, yes. It doesn't depress me as much now, probably because part of it in my youth was to do with my parents' divorce. I'm sure that was the connection. And that my father used to play classical music, and so when I heard it, I missed him. It was, wasn't terribly hard to work out, but it took me a long time to get over. And but probably the last 3 or 4 years, I really started to enjoy it and listen to it without getting upset. And also because my father is very happy, and when I see him and hear classical music, it is a nice time, so it doesn't upset me anymore.
I mentioned earlier in this conversation Anne-Marie, and mutual respect has been exchanged between the two of you in terms of your career and your work. But you share something else, and that something else seems to be the downside of being Anne-Marie, Olivia Newton-John. And that is the fan that gets out of hand, out of control. You have a man, as Anne-Marie had, who is a fan. Your particular problem believes he is God, and that you were meant to be his wife. This man went so far as to trespass on your property and had to be arrested. Now, there have been situations where you've been on tour in a dressing room, and someone has been able to leave a threatening note on your dressing room table. This fear, this new thing in the world of show business where the star has always been able to turn and put out a hand to a fan or say thank you for being my fans. Is it a constant fear? Is it a constant concern now because of John Lennon, because of what happens in the world?
It is a worry, but I try not to let it get on top of me, because I think you can create, by having that fear, you can draw fear to you. So I try not to think about it too much, and so I feel secure. I have security with me, and so I am protected. But it's something that you have to live with, unfortunately. But I don't think about it. I try not to think about it too often. But it's a horrific thing. And those people, the one man I've had a problem with, which unfortunately got to the press, I never wanted it to become public knowledge, because, these things have happened before and they've never become public knowledge. But it's very sad. I mean, the man's not well. He's mentally ill and he should be institutionalized, and I think he is at the moment. And there are others, but it's bound to happen because entertainers in America are kind of like the royalty in other countries, and they're attracted to us because we're so visible. And it's just something you have to live with. But it's such a low percentage. It's just always blown out of proportion by the press.
City Lights on Location will return with Olivia Newton-John right after this. Newton-John is with us. We can talk about concert tours, motion pictures, television specials, platinum, gold.
Diamond.
I think diamond. I think of the first time somebody said to you, but Olivia, it's number 40 with a bullet. And you actually had to turn to someone and say, it's what?
Yeah.
Now, of course, you know what any number with a bullet is. There's been so much of it in your life. But I think with all of that, and I'm complimenting the achievement, the sense of investing 20 years of your life, nothing touched me, or nothing has moved me as much about you as watching that extraordinary footage of you with those dolphins. And I think beyond what you said in your communique to the Japanese government about Olivia won't sing in your country until something is done about this, but the footage of you with those animals is probably one of the most intimate love scenes you've ever put on film.
I'm glad to see it as that. It was. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche to say it was the most amazing experience I've had, but it really was, because when I made that footage, I hadn't finished the song. I'd written half of the song. And my producer said to me, John Farrow said, it's very nice, but you need a middle, and you need to mention the word dolphin, because when I first wrote it, I didn't mention the word at all. And I didn't know how I was going to finish it, because I'm one of those people, if the song doesn't come in one go, I give up, very bad that way. So I was there, and the morning after I swam with him in the morning, I went back to my hotel room, and I woke up the next morning with a melody in my head. And by the afternoon, the lyrics were there, just all at once. I just wrote them down like it was coming from somewhere else. And I still think that they gave it to me.
I do.
It sounds very romantic and all, but it must have come from somewhere.
I've enjoyed meeting you, and I hope that if I ever find myself in the neighborhood or in need of sugar cane or avocados, can find my way to the 80-acre ranch in Australia.
You're very welcome.
With an empty cup.
Okay.
I've enjoyed meeting you.
Hey, you too. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. City Lights on Location with Olivia Newton-John.
All right, so this was really great to see, especially Olivia, 1982, just to hear her talk about basically life then, right? And I feel like, to me, it's just always been so weird that she was like white bread, categorized like goody two shoes, but honestly, just coming in as I did, right, experience her in the past, I've always seen an edge to Olivia, honestly, an edge in the sadness. And it always translated to me, and not only her vocals, right, because Olivia's vocals were always intimate, but also could be very flirty, which physical, they were very flirty. And, you stop, baby. And totally hot, right? It's kind of like she finally got the chance to do that. But if you saw some of those early like 70s performances, Olivia had swag, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I just think it was always ridiculous, that kind of square she was placed into. But I get it. Back then, basically people just had to be placed in the squares, right? But she was one of those first artists to kind of break out of that, right? And again, I always say it was Olivia that really ushered in kind of like the sexually charged 80s with physical. But anyway, drop the comments down below. The first time seeing this interview like me, what did you think? Also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Make sure you also check out the Olivia Newton-John playlist. I've reacted to plenty of her music and videos. And last but not least, if you like me to react to a song, your choice of what to do, hit me up on Patreon. The link is below. All right, guys. I hope everybody's out there feeling good, staying safe, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.